a lot for the great introduction. And thank you all for coming here for the presentation. Today we're going to talk about remote work. But first, a few words about myself. So, I'm Atanas Yonkov. I was born in Varna, Bulgaria. I graduated in International Economics and Business. And when I graduated, I started my first job. It was customer support. It was a tedious and boring 9-to-5 job, which I hated at that time, and I almost started hating my life. And then with a few friends of mine, we created a WordPress blog, and it all started like a hobby. But then I realized it's actually my passion to work with WordPress and to make websites. So I decided I like the WordPress and websites building so much that I quit my job and I enrolled in a course in programming. And I soon landed my first development job. And here I am now, thanks to WordPress. It's a great honor to be here. And I'm also the founder of Nasio Themes, which is a digital agency that creates WordPress themes and plugins. So you can check our agency website, teams.com, if you need a WordPress theme and maybe you're building your next website. If you like Gutenberg, or if you don't like page builders like I do, you can check the themes because they're very lightweight, basically, and simple. And I would love to connect, so you can find me in LinkedIn, Yonkov Atanas. You can also find my WordPress profile is Robota12. And also I started a YouTube channel recently, which is basically help about WordPress, so you can keep an eye on that as well. And so first we're gonna have a brief introduction about remote work, history of remote work. We'll look into advantages, disadvantages of working remotely, and we'll also discuss how we can scale and how we can succeed in managing and being part also of a remote team. So who here thinks that remote work became possible because of the advent of the personal computer and the adoption of the internet? Okay, you're almost right. It did become popular and successful with the advent of the personal computer and the internet, but actually the first remote workers were not using the computer at all. They were using this device here, the phone. Actually made everything possible, and it was back in the 70s, the first remote workers. They were called telecommuters. And the guy who coined this term, teleworkers or telecommuters, and the guy who coined this term was Jack News in the 70s. He's a scholar who was assigned a task by companies to find a way to alternative way of work, because in the 70s the US economy was threatened by the OPEC embargo, basically, and the fuel prices were quite high. And companies were looking for alternative ways to business and to cut their costs. And Jack News is considered the father of remote work, but he didn't use this term. He was referring to telework, not remote work yet. And back then people were using terminals, which is basically just a black screen with a keyboard, and they were connecting in the office where there was a mainframe. and they could get through the landlines and through the phone, they could get data back and forth. Of course, it was a very primitive way of transferring data, but it was possible. And also they were using heavily the mail, the standard lettering. And in 1979, actually, 5 IBM employees were, as part of an experiment from IBM, they were ordered to work remotely, like fully remotely. Ironically, because IBM is actually one of the also first companies who switched their strategy in the late 2015 or 17, I think. And they required their employees to go back to the office. But that's a different story. And the remote work slowly but surely started to gain speed in the 80s, in the 90s. In the late 90s, the garage tech startups were becoming popular with the mass adoption of the internet. And one of the reasons was simply because they were on a budget, and for them it was necessity still, since they did not have an office. So in general, as Jack News put it, the technology was not the limiting factor for the adoption of the remote working remotely, but it was more about the culture and organizational management cultural changes, which were slower than the technology development, basically. And why remote work? Why this topic is important? As we see the statistics, 8.9% of employees in Europe work remotely, and 81% of employees believe they are at least as or more productive when working remotely. At the same time, 55% of employees say that they work longer hours when they work remotely, and also 42% reported that they feel isolated when working remotely. So yeah, it's like every rose has its thorns, also with remote work. It's not only good, it's only bad. And of course, so I'll go very briefly with the advantages and disadvantages, because I'm pretty sure most of you work remotely and you're familiar with them. But yeah, to put it simply, remote work would not exist if it wasn't beneficial for companies to have it, and of course it's beneficial for them. First, because it's cost efficient, they're saving money from office. It's also they can have a broader talent pool. They can choose between. They're not restricted with developers from one area, let's say, but they can hire globally and cheaply, because in some countries, of course, people have a different standard, and they might afford to work for a more competitive salary. Fewer staff absence. Also, remote workers are found to work even when they're sick, and to work even when they're they don't feel well. While in the office, they will be frowned upon if you go to the office coughing, and the others, of course, won't be happy with that, but the manager will not mind if the employee is working and coughing in his home, basically. And lower employee turnover. It's found that remote workers are actually less likely to quit their job, which is a quite positive sign. And for employees, of course, they can work from anywhere. Like when I moved to working with WordPress, this allowed me to work remotely. And I work fully remotely since 2019. And yeah, of course, this is for most people. This freedom is definitely a plus, because you can work, technically you can even work while you are on the beach or on a vacation. You have more flexible work schedule. You can save time and money traveling. And as Jack News put it, the less time the employees spent in the traffic, the less angry they are. And you don't want angry employees, you want happy employees. So if you can spare their day spending time in the traffic, that's good for the business and for their well-being. And of course, customize your workspace. You can put whatever you want: plants, curtains, lamp, air conditioning on, off, whatever you want. While in the office, of course, you're working with other people, and it's not that. It's more complicated, let's say, especially if you are like 100 people in a tiny environment. At the same time, there are a lot of challenges. And the biggest challenge for remote work, of course, is the communication breakdown. Why? Because studies have shown that 80% of the communication is actually non-verbal, and only 20% is verbal. So it's very important also like you can imagine that 80% of the communication is lost when you're working remotely pretty much. And that's a big problem. And I also say, when we're talking about the challenges, I also provide countermeasures, so what can be done in this regard. And with the communication breakdown, what can be done is to have some events happening and to like team building activities, team cohesion and culture. How can you build team culture when you don't even meet? Of course, that's a challenging thing. And again, you can think about having from time to time to meet somehow to find a way to do that. Also, technological challenges. You need to basically educate. If you're a manager, you need to educate your employees, because not everyone has this is enough aware about the dangers which working in a remote environment can be, like not using public Wi-Fi's, avoiding public Wi-Fi's, or forgetting to a measure to counter this is to also to educate other people. Another example is they forget to lock their screens, for example. It's also a problem, because somebody can get access to sensitive information. So what else? Maintaining oversight without micromanaging. That's also problematic, because it's hard for managers to understand the progress and how it's working. When it's easier when they are face to face to see what is happening, but when they are working remotely, it's easier to lose track of this. And managers, the first human reaction is to increase the level of management, but that's in the long term that is not positive, because in the long term, people who are micromanaged start to feel embarrassed about that. And while some people have this need to be guided, let's say, there are also other people who feel that their freedom is restricted like this, and they become less motivated. So a way to tackle this, in my opinion, is to actually do the opposite, to give more freedom to your team, and they might eventually reward you for that. And if they don't, then it's a matter of course, team culture. So you're going back to the loop, basically. And coordinating different time zones. Yeah, imagine your colleague is in the US and you're here on the Balkans, or even in the Japan. But usually there are like 2-3 hours overlap. So a way to counter this is to use this time when there is an overlap. Like maybe it's the morning there and here it's the evening, but still there might be 1 or 2 hours where both of you are working, and you can use this time to synchronize. And the other time can be asynchronous communication. ensuring team members feel supported and motivated. That's also a tricky one, even if you are working in the office. But in general, if you try to follow this advice to make them feel more less micromanaged and more heard, that would help. Integrating new team members. This is especially challenging with remote work. I have observed during my time as being employee for one company, which we were hired as newcomers basically to this company, and the senior, because I was working in a development team, the senior development team was not, let's say, fond of us being there, and they didn't want to share their knowledge pretty much with us for different reasons, but who knows. But the thing is, when you are in an office, you can, as a manager, you can easily spot when there is no cooperation between the team, and you can try to fix it. But in a remote environment, this might be trickier. And what was happening is that a task that can be done in 30 minutes with the support of more experienced team members, it was given to us, and as you can imagine, the project was extremely complex. The code base was crazy, and it was taking us much longer to get the thing done without the help. And needless to say, this is money which a company loses in the long term. And a way to tackle this is to increase the team spirit between the different team members, to explain to the more senior guys that these new people are not in any way threatening them. And on the contrary, if they support them, they should get some benefit. So instead of having this competitive wolf-style environment, when one person tries to show that he's doing all the work and the others are not, you should encourage the thinking of a team. So, and this, in the long run, can help the company grow. Overcoming isolation and loneliness. This is more on the remote employee perspective, and basically it's up to the person, and it's important when you pick remote workers for your project to keep in mind that remote work is not for everybody. So personally, what I have observed is that remote workers tend to be more in the introvert side of the spectrum. So if you are a person who is energized by other people and you need constantly to be with other people to feel good, then maybe remote work is not for you, especially in the long run. So yeah, it's important to pick your team in correspondence with the specific environment. Handling distraction without and staying focused at the same time. That's also a tricky one, especially with people who have also families, and there are a lot of distractions when you're working remotely, and also email overload, which can happen. We are bombarded with so much information from emails, from chat. A good way to handle this is to have some routine. Let's say check your email like 2-3 times per day at a specific time, because when you're doing something and you get a message at the same time, you get distracted, and this can also make you feel bad in the long run. So have some, as a remote worker, you need to have some strategies in place. So we shouldn't expect that the system is perfect. It's not. It also depends on us how to handle it. Also about this topic with overcoming isolation, it's also up to the remote worker, not just if it's introvert, extrovert, like I said, but You can do some extra work activities, and it's up to you. You can maybe go to dancing lessons, or you can go to some hiking club. You can find a lot of activities, especially if you live in a bigger area. If you're in a more rural area, it's of course more challenging. But still, in the weekends, you can do some fun things together. Yeah, we mentioned also the digital overload. And yeah, the $1 million question is how to make remote teams work. And yeah, it's a hard question. So the right answer is like my professor was saying in the university. In the university, it depends. It depends on many things. But one thing is to get the right people for the task, and the other is to have some methodology in place, to some workflows in place. So because otherwise, if you don't have any way of work, if you don't have any structure, it can easily become stressful for everybody. So you need to have some process in place, so there is some predictability. Not the way like a whole week you're not doing anything, and on Friday at 5 p.m. the manager comes super stressed and says, guys, you have 2 hours and we have a project to complete, and nobody goes until we finished. So don't do that. Instead, there should be work needs to be organized, needless to say. And since I'm coming, who here has been working in a non-development team like marketing or sales? Who is here? Okay, so most of you are working in a development team, I guess. Who's in the development team? Okay, that's good, because I'm also coming from development, and I'm talking here about project management methodologies for the development teams, but they also can be applied also for any kind of team, not just development team. And the 4 most popular are Waterfall, Kanban, Agile, and Scrum. And the Waterfall workflow is the standard, the classical approach to software development. Work is organized, it's plan-based also code. So in the Waterfall, it's inspired from the construction work, where you build a wall, and before you build a wall, you need to have very good strategy and plan where to build a wall. It's not good to build a wall and then realize that you didn't build it in the right place and have to tear it down. So imagine how much costly that would be. But in a fast-paced development environment where things are happening, things are changing every day, especially with the mass adoption of AI, where new apps are being built every day. If you check in the WordPress repository, it's never in the history of WordPress that so many plugins are created every day and published in the repository. Also, it's like that for themes. So having a very good plan is good, but you need to have some flexibility, because otherwise, if you wait too much time, the product can become obsolete. And so this approach is not, the traditional approach is not very good, and as the Stanford Bridge group found, fewer than 1 in 5 software projects were unqualified success, and these deficiencies were partly due to traditional waterfall methodologies, which defined requirements at the beginning of multi-year projects, and resulted in late or over-budget software delivery. In some cases, deliverables were obsolete due to market changes that had happened during a project. So in development teams, you need to have more, you need to take more flexible approach. And that's why in the early 2000s, companies were started to use more the agile approach, which, unlike waterfall, which only the development team starts working only when everything else is in place, like design, planning, etc. here, back and forth between the different teams is allowed. So you can start building, and then the design can say, okay, we need to change here the design because this now it's going to work. Of course, that's a bit more stressful for the developers and also for the others, but that's the nature of the work, because otherwise the competitor would do it faster and more efficient than us. And Kanban is a superset of Agile, which is personally my favorite methodology because it focuses on process improvements, and it is inspired by the Lean methodology by the Toyota Group in the 50s, where they focused on building cars based on a very limited budget. So Lean is about efficiency, basically. If we need to put one word here, it could be efficiency. And process improvements. So the focus here is process improvements, so make the things with less, do more, basically. And Scrum, I'm pretty sure since you're developers, most of you have worked in Scrum environment. Focus on the Scrum, unlike Kanban, is not process improvements and less deficiencies, but focus is to get more things done faster. And this can create some stress also for the teams, because basically you have a lot of different ceremonies and calls where you need to explain all the time what is happening. And unfortunately, some companies, I've noticed in my experience, they use Scrum in not the way it was meant to be, but more like a micromanagement tool. And that's very bad. And if you check in Google, you can see that a lot of people are complaining about the Scrum methodology, and some people claim that it's a micromanagement in disguise. But I really like this citation from Quora, which I found one person there. He says that it's micromanagement only when implemented poorly. And the whole concept of Scrum is teams are self-organized, self-driven, and empowered to do whatever they need in order to meet their commitments. Quite simply, many organizations aren't capable of trusting their development teams to do the right things at the right time with regular checkpoints. They fear that empowering individuals will result in waste rather than efficiency. But that's exactly the opposite of what I was telling you earlier about giving more freedom to your workers. And I think in remote work, personally, this is very important for the motivation of the remote people. And here we coming to the essence of the presentation with the productivity hacks for our remote teams. Now that we know about the dynamics, basic advantages, pros and cons, and methodologies. And the first point here is to encourage proactivity. I really like that I had a manager who was organizing these one-to-one calls with us to understand, like every quarter, what is happening. But he did it in a way that he was like, I'm not setting a call with you. It's up to you to do it. And it's not obligatory to do it. So it's up to the person to go to the manager, not the other way around. So ideally, you should have a team that you don't need to micromanage, but they should be more like self-driven, let's put it this way. They should be the one giving updates. You don't need to. If you find yourself as a manager to be in the situation where you constantly ask for updates and something is wrong, this is not how it should be. And it can be a problem with both sides on the spectrum. Encourage collaboration. As I said, I had this situation where we were not in a collaborative environment, and we were more like in a competition with, or at least the more experienced guys were not trusting us for one reason or another. And your role as a manager here would be to encourage collaboration. Embrace flexibility. So if the worker wants to work in the night for some reason, or he's in a different time zone and it's the only time when you are sleeping that he's working, if you can allow him, and most likely he'll be grateful for this and reward you in the long term. Set clear communication guidelines. Some things can be done asynchronously. Some things can be done in a chat, but some other things cannot be done in chat. So for some things, it needs to be a call, a video call. So you need to communicate clearly with your team what is good for a chat, what is not good for a chat, because of the 80% which we discussed, that only 20% of the communication is delivered through chat. So obviously, if you have some, for example, bad news for your employee that you want to fire him, don't do it in chat. That's not gonna work well. Embrace flexibility, set clear communication guidelines. Yeah, we discussed that. Well-maintained documentation. That's a must, and I still don't understand when I see companies which don't have any documentation in place. And I worked in such remote teams, and if you don't have time to make documentation, something is again wrong. You need to find time for this. Yes, projects are, deadlines are pushing in and so on, but you need to have good organization if you want to succeed long term. And identify weak points. And what happens, how companies try to identify weak points? Usually the weak point is the communication breakdown. And what do the companies decide to do? To enforce meetings, of course. So meetings are the shortcut to and the panacea for all the problems, but in reality they are not. Meetings can be useful, but they can also be useless, and they can become a burden if not used properly. And a lot of very successful people are actually very radical about meetings. I just put a few citations here. Elon Musk, who says, walk out of a meeting or drop off a call as soon as it's obvious you are not adding value. So who here of you has been in a meeting where the only thing he says in the beginning is hello, and at the end is bye? Okay, so see Elon Musk advice about this next time. Think about it. And get rid of frequent meetings unless you're dealing with an extremely urgent matter, it's also said. Mark Cuban, no meetings or phone calls unless I'm picking up a check. And Jeff Bezos, if you can't feed everybody in the meeting with 2 pizzas, then there's too many people in that meeting. So I'm not saying that, my point here is not that meetings are bad, it's just that some companies are overdoing them, and because of fear of employees not working, so it's a tool to actually to micromanage people. So it can be, originally it's not the idea, but this is what can happen. So if you find yourself having too many meetings as a manager, if you are constantly asking for feedback, something is wrong. So it's not increasing the number of meetings, but establishing more proper ways of doing work, rather. And we come here to the point how to scale a remote team for growth. And as we discussed, less talk, more work. Maybe it sounds obvious, but the more talk doesn't necessarily mean more efficiency. It's like, so most of you here are developers, so I can give this example. It's not the lines of code that determine the project. Yeah, it's the essence. It's what inside these functions, inside these classes, right? So it's not the quantity here; it's the quality. And having virtual chat room in place might be beneficial, might be not. Some teams don't think so important. But I personally find it useful when there is a channel just for some random talk. But so keep the, like in Slack, you can have different channels, for example, or whatever you're using. If you're using other tools like Teams, I don't know, but you can have one channel where it's just random things, and you can talk about your dogs or whatever you like. And this helps. This is found to help actually remote workers to reduce their stress also. So yeah, you can keep that in mind. Also, don't scale for the sake of scaling. I was working with one Upwork agency back in 2020, and the guy really wanted to expand, so he booked the down floor, basically the garage of the shared center, and he started hiring people only after 2 weeks to get kicked out of the project because he put too many people in this project and the customer did not like that because they had to pay more. So only scale. It's also the Toyota principle, by the way. If you're interested, read about the lean approach. Because how they're working in the 50s after the Second World War, they had very limited budget, right? And they had limited resources to build the cars. And what they were doing is they were building the car only when there was a demand. So this pull approach. So don't build if you don't have a clear idea how to sell it, how to. Also, don't grow if you don't have a clear idea how to grow. Just for being the big boss, right? With a big office. Praise the good work. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. But when somebody does a good job, this is the best thing to do. And maybe not just praise it, but if you have also as a manager, if you have the other means to praise it, it's not a bad idea to do it. Like, you know what I'm talking about, finance. And trust and delegate work. That's extremely important when you growing as a company. And if you're a CTO or CEO, you have 10 employees or 20 employees and you are coding, maybe you're doing something wrong. So you hired a lot of people, and they should do the work, right? So CTO should focus on other things at this point. If it's just a one-person company, it's fine and this guy's developer, it's fine to code, but yeah, maybe you like coding, but maybe it's not the most optimal usage of the CTO's time is to code. So trust and delegate work is important. Yeah, I'm almost there. Do quarterly reviews, as I told you about my manager who suggested that we come to him with only, of course, we need to talk with him instead of he booking obligatory calls. So do quarterly reviews, but do them in a way that it's not enforcing, like do recommended. Also with the meetings, they can be like originally in Scrum, the meetings are not obligatory, actually. The idea of the meeting is to meet only if there is a reason to meet, but companies enforce, unfortunately, different things. Build a team with virtual work fit high performers. This is already what I mentioned about extroverted, introverted people, but also people who are on the same page. So people who want to grow and who are fit for this position, basically. So it's very important who you choose to work with. If you, of course, have the opportunity to choose. Measure productivity, not time. Yeah, also we had this, I also worked in such an environment where we had hub staff timers, and basically our job was to do 8 hours with the hub staff. And needless to say, here the focus is on the time, but time is not equivalent of delivery, and especially with development work, when you need after a few hours, person gets tired and he starts delivering less. It's not very good idea to use timing as a measure of productivity. Even it's a bad idea, to be honest. So measure, find a way to measure productivity, not time, and also meet in person. Try to organize team building activities or some other events, but try to meet in person. So working remotely doesn't mean you shouldn't meet if you can. And yeah, that was my presentation. Thank you for attention, and you can find me in these channels here. Thank you, and if you have any questions. Yes?
I have two questions. My first question is, if I look around, I think most of us in their childhood didn't grow up with phones or tablets and so on, and maybe that has an impact on our perception about remote work. So I'm curious a bit about your thoughts about the younger generation, like Generation Z, maybe the Alpha generation. Do you think they will have a different perception about remote work? And how do you think the culture around remote work might change if they enter the workforce?
Yeah, very interesting question. I cannot predict the future as I don't have the crystal ball, but what I can say is that your observation is true, that Gen Z is much more prone to distraction, and a way to tackle this, I also mentioned in the presentation, is to try to limit exposure to maybe switch off your mobile data, for example, if you have a lot of social media while you're working, or check your email, let's say, before lunch and before end of work, something like that. So if they enforce themselves to have some control over the usage of social media and online tools, this might have positive impact. Yeah, but we're yet to see, because most of them still haven't entered the workforce. So hopefully it will be sustainable, but yeah, we'll see. Thank you for the question. Anyone else?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. Thank you for bringing such an important topic to this event. I would like to ask you two questions, if you don't mind. The first one is, how do you guys measure productivity instead of time? And the second one is, how many project managers do you have? Or what do you think was the adequate amount of projects per one project manager? And how big of team can one project manager hold or manage? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting questions. The first one is how to measure productivity. Basically, I mentioned about Kanban, and I recommend, and this is what we are doing in our company. We are having this board in Trello where you can easily see who is working on what, so you can keep track on the work. And I also notice a lot of teams not using anything, and just manager going to the employee and can you do this for me, please? And it's a problem, of course, because you don't know what your colleague is working. So it's important to use some project management tool to keep track, and not just the manager to keep track, but also the others to keep track, so they know what the other people are doing. Otherwise, it can become situation one person is not doing anything and other is having overtime, right? This is what I can recommend. And what was your second question? Can you repeat?
It was the project management. So If we
Yeah.
have one project manager, how many projects can that person handle?
Yeah.
And what size of team do you think is adequate per one project manager? I guess that you are tracking efficiency through the project manager, not just the tool.
Yeah, we're working in a small team. We do have a project manager. It really depends on the scale and on the size of the project. If the project is too big, I would say that it would make sense to have more than one project manager. But they should have they should not overlap too much. So one person should be responsible for a specific thing and the other for other. But don't have your teams too big, like if I don't know 50 people doing on the same. It's very hard to keep track. So I would say you need to split into different teams, different squads, and every squad to be responsible for different things. If it's too big, if it's smaller, it's one project manager and one team might handle it. But it's not about using, for example, Scrum being useful for many people, because I heard also this, but I don't agree with that Kanban cannot work with very big projects. It can work. It's a matter of organization and dividing the work into smaller batches. And actually, companies like Microsoft, Apple, they are very rarely using Scrum, if at all. They prefer more synchronous way of working. So it's possible. Yeah, hopefully this answers the question. Anyone else have a question?
I have tons. I mean, I can. So I think I was paying attention to your lecture. I don't see how are we treating work-life balance in remote work. So I get that we can put the label of freedom and say we can chill on our vacation and work, but is it vacation if we are working? And how do we keep the mental state of our employees or colleagues in the remote work?
Yeah, that's.
I mean, you can talk from your personal experience. That's also fine.
Yeah, that's a good question. In general, it's very true what you're saying, that working while on the vacation is not very how to say. Yeah, it's not relaxing at all. It's not vacation even. Especially if you have deadlines, if you have, so that's true, and it's a valid point, and also the motivation. Yeah, it's. I personally believe that the best way to provide motivation is to give more space to the people instead of checking on them all the time. I think this works, but in general, it's it's on the other side of the spectrum. So the person should find motivation in himself. So if the person is not motivated, you cannot really make the person motivated. It's something that comes from within. It's like coming here in the WordCamp. If you don't have the motivation to do it, I don't think anyone can make you come here. Or it might happen one time, but then you run away, right? But of course, this doesn't mean that managers shouldn't encourage employees. And one thing could be at least from my perspective, since this is what I can talk about, is to give more room to grow, so less micromanaging. Because as an employee, I felt most miserable in companies where I had to explain myself constantly what I'm working on right now, when I'll be ready. And of course it was because they were chasing deadlines. But it's stressful for everybody, also for the project manager, because the project manager also doesn't want to be in this position to chase all the time, but it's because there's somebody behind to pushing with deadlines. So it's good to have good communication in all the places, also with the client. And also I sometimes notice that clients, for example, they might not be worried so much, but it's the manager that gets a bit crazy for sometimes for no reason. And it escalates to the developer. So in general, having this less trust issues is better. So giving more space is what I believe works with remote team. And more micromanaging is better. That's how I see it.
I think we can debate on this for at least 2 hours.
Okay, we can do it after.
Yeah,
We can do after the talk. I don't mind.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
I'm also curious in your
I
perspective.
just wanted to note that there's a difference between motivation and discipline. That's it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And you're project manager, or
I'm the owner.
are you on? Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, so we can talk later. Yeah.
But I do not have both of you in recording. There is no point to one of the
I just wanted to say that there is a difference between discipline and motivation. It's the same thing when you are trying to work out without a proper plan. And if you say like, oh, I'm just gonna fly by an instinct, so I might go today because I'm motivated and it's Saturday. And the next thing you know, it's the next month and you just forgot to work out. So it's the same in the work environment, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you, and that's why I said that you need to pick the people who are fit for doing the job. So it's the responsibility of the manager, after all, to pick the people who sees disciplined, right? So and of course it can change, because I also work with a person who was very motivated, and at one point he lost the motivation. So this is not something constant. So you need to keep track of this, and working with people is not like with computers, and it's unpredictable. But yeah, I agree with you. Discipline. So it's not just motivation, but also.
We can continue later. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I ask you?
Do we have time for one more question, or?
It was more like a question to her, just to understand when you say discipline. So my question to you would be, when you say, it's like a very heated debate now. When you say discipline, what do you mean? Do you mean discipline at the level of the company, like processes and organization? Or do you mean discipline in the sense that he used it, which is more like an inner drive and something that falls on the responsibility of the person? So when you say discipline, is the combination of the two? Is it one, or is it the other for you?
Maybe you can give me the mic. Every guy is trying to kill. I think it's the combination. You need to have the self-drive. But if I'm to extend on your question, when you said like what we are going to do with the Gen A generation, well, we have an issue there, because we have increased percentage of people with lots of different psychological disorders that new generations are facing. So the company cannot be agile, so we just go and extinguish the fire. We need to build a system for the team to be less stressed and less panicky. So when there was a topic about, I feel pressure from my project manager, I just see there that there is a loop in that procedure that needs to be optimized, in my opinion. And the self-drive, well, that's something that we can also build, and it's a practice. Thank you.
I have one question.
I apologize.
So my question is, how do you settle cultural differences between team members? So she mentioned work and life balance, which is typically European, and you have like European team members and US team members who are getting the job done. And now we have a team member from the United States and a team member from Europe who is used to work-life balance, who is used to 4-day work weeks, and a US team member who, in a normal state, works 60 hours a week. And how do you make that cohesion for that team to work together and be productive as a team?
Yeah, that's one of the main problems which I also experienced with remote work. It's the cultural difference and also different expectations and different from different team members. And for me, it's very important to build this try to build this right culture. So so some cultures are more competitive in their nature, but I found it's not very useful in a team. If somebody is trying to show off more, it's usually that the team is a team, you know. So it's important the end result of the whole team. And for me, as a manager, it's more important the whole team, not just one person. And yeah, I think the right approach is to communicate with, but of course it's challenging in a remote environment communication. So we're going back to this, the other, and yeah, but I think the communication is the right approach, and again, picking
And
people
I think
who-
a compromise.
Sorry?
And a compromise.
Yeah,
Because I think
from
the US
everybody.
team member will look forward to work a bit less, but the European team member will, part my friend, be pissed to work a bit more. And that's the only way, I think, to make everybody happy, because the goal is to make everybody happy in order to make team productive.
Yeah, I remember just to remark on your comment about Americans. I remember in LinkedIn there was, it was a second in my friend list, but he was complaining about, it was around New Year time, and he was complaining that what is it like in working with Europe is crazy. They have like on the 20th, they're 20th December, and they're telling me that they will be back on the 3rd of January. Like, and the guy was really pissed off, and they were like, oh my God, what is, and people also, one person I know, he's workaholic also for our standards as Europeans. He was
Their
like,
standards.
what is happening to this continent? It's very bad, you know. And they were like, and
Their
yeah, I just
standard vacation policy is 2 weeks, and in Europe it's
Yeah.
4 to 6.
Make it 6.
yeah. But we can continue this talk.
It's not sick leave.
Yeah, I think we have very common and interesting.
This is
round.
for after party, great topic.
Yeah, we have already a few hours. Okay, if we
No, we're out of time.
we're out of time. Okay, thank you.